And here he is, Eric Bakey. Welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot for having me, Gene.
I am thrilled to have you because you have popped up on my screen in a couple of different ways here as an interesting vet who's got a great story to tell. And I know others can learn from this story. But before we get into the meat, let's give you the chance to tell your story of military service in your own words. What did you do on active duty?
I joined the Army right after high school, and I was an engineer. So I learned how to blow stuff up and dig ditches, and I had a lot of fun. I deployed with 3rd ID out of Fort Stewart, and
Help the Navy people. What's ID? I know what it is.
Infantry division. And
go.
so in support of other grunts, I was a grunt with construction equipment. And so we went to Ramadi in 2006. And if you know anything about how that played out, it was some of the bloodiest fighting of the Iraq War. I was very fortunate to have SEAL support from the big name brand guys like Jocko. They actually wrote about us in an Extreme Ownership, which was a very flattering experience, because I was just a high school educated kid operating construction equipment and doing route clearance while these badass Navy EOD and SEAL teams were providing sniper security and doing just really high speed stuff while we're just kind of attracting gunfire and trying to find bombs before they find us. And more often than not, that we weren't super successful at that. But
the myth of service rivalry goes away pretty quickly when you're in that sort of situation, doesn't it?
It does. And we were a joint task force. It was joint JTF Pathfinder, and it was Marine infantry, Army engineers, Navy EOD, and we got to wear we had modified grooming standards. We had flight suits. It was just such a ragtag, awesome experience. And it made me, I really wanted to, when I got off that deployment, I signed up for 20th Special Forces Group. I really wanted to be SF. And that ultimately led to my transition out of active duty, because I didn't get my way. I was immature, and I thought I was this tough guy, super smart PT stud, but I was just not quite emotionally mature enough to make it through selection and go on to the teams. So I was getting very frustrated with the bureaucracy and the fact that I'm like this high speed tough guy, and the Army won't let me do what I want to do. So I'm going to take my toys and go home. And looking back now, I was not mature enough to handle it. And I'm grateful for all the experiences I had into it. And if I would have just stuck with it, I'm sure I could have got where I'm going. And there were a lot of lessons that I can learn reflecting back on that, but I didn't stick with it. And I don't regret not doing it, because you make friends and you see how things play out. And I didn't have a clear goal of what I wanted when I went into the Army, or even when I got out. And there was just a lot of thrashing in that transition that, again, tons of lessons learned reflecting back now. But if I had a clear goal before I had gone into that direction, I could have accomplished the goal if I just would have been a little bit more self-aware and intentional and gritted it out. Because I see guys who were less PT studs, less smarter driven or whatever, make it through, and I'm like, but maybe I should just stuck it out. So
right.
yeah,
I think it's a bit of a public myth that the special forces are the big sort of brutish tough guy that can physically defend themselves, and it's at least as much about the mental and psychological awareness and maturity as you describe, and that people come to that at different points in their lives. It is wonderful in a way that we have a process by which we can identify those who are ready versus those who are not, because, as you allude, the missions they perform are extraordinary and are often done, somewhat independently, where things don't necessarily go by an exact playbook. Eric, how long did you initially enlist for? What did you think that first enlistment was going to be?
I signed up for a 6-year stint, and once I had the opportunity to go IRR, I jumped right on that. And I stuck around. I saw what the National Guard stuff looked like, and I just was uninterested in trying to run a civilian career and a paramilitary career. It was just like, once I got a taste of that, I just politely bowed out.
How old were you at the 6-year mark?
24 years old.
And what did you think would come next? So you recognized, okay, I can't do what I want in the Army. I'm going to try something else. Did you know what that something else was, or how was this coming into your view?
That's where I recognized that looking back, I should have been much more intentional because I didn't know what I wanted. I had, 90 days of paid leave or whatever to kind of figure that out. I decided to drink myself to a decision point. And I remember I signed up for all these because I didn't have a clear, I had a bunch of random like online course credits and stuff. I thought I wanted to maybe be a police officer. I thought all these different kinds of, I didn't really know what I wanted. Like, I didn't want to work a normal job, but I didn't know what it was that I wanted to do. And I got a phone call from this master sergeant who could tell I was drunk at 9 o'clock in the morning from whatever, on a Wednesday morning, whatever. And he's like, Sergeant Bakey, you need to get your stuff together. You need to go to this testing thing tomorrow. You've got brain cells. I've seen what you've done. There's an elevator apprenticeship in your town, and you need to go take that test. It was for a program called Helmets to Hard Hats. And I did it. He spoke some truth into my life right at the time that I needed it. Like, it was perfect timing. I went and took that test, and they said, well, you do have some marbles up there. And I was very fortunate to get hired, but take the test, get placed, go through a job placement kind of process. And I signed up for a 4-year apprenticeship in the elevator union, and was very fortunate to come up in the elevator trade and get a hard skill that, again, that it paid very well. So, I mean, 6 figures to get paid to learn a trade, which I got to go into the office as a superintendent and continue to get paid to learn and really work through some of my immature behaviors in a world of people who I also got to see what I do want to do, what I don't want to do, what does this look like 40 years from now? Do I want to be? I just got to grow up a lot in that place.
When you got the call, sort of the confrontation, I don't know if intervention is the right word, but when you got the call, was that a mentor still on active duty, or somebody you knew outside of active duty?
I don't know how I never knew him. I spent years trying to find out who that guy was. I had his name written down for a while. I reached out to Helmets to Hard Hats for trying to volunteer after I had made it. I wanted to return the favor, and I could never find that guy again. I have no idea who it was. Don't know how he was able to get through to me. I have no idea. It was just like my guardian angel. It was exactly the masculine voice I needed at the time, because I was, I can hindsight, look at this stuff. I was looking for that initiation, that masculine initiation, and I finally got it in a way that I didn't want. I mean, it was just, again, this is probably a little too woo-woo for
No,
this,
it's a
but
profound acknowledgement. Very few people have the self-confidence to speak it publicly. But Eric, I guarantee you others will learn from this just by hearing it. So it means a lot that you would share it.
It was through that. I was looking for it when I got this tough guy Army job, tough guy trade, wrench spinning, pipe carrying, steel stacking kind of job, and then going into the office as a leader who had come from the grit. And I earned the respect of other men who were much older, more experienced than me, because I had done hard things and stuck it out. So to finally get that acknowledgement and also be able to help others kind of reach that level of understanding was really profound for me. And I recognized then that this is what real leadership is, not just like in the meantime, I had covered myself in tattoos and this like bodybuilder, drunk biker kind of like outward facing masculinity that I was really trying to, show the world how tough I was. And once I finally could actually be the toughest guy at the barbecue and realize that nobody cared and it was actually not serving me, I was able to let it go and really lift people up. And it was just such a, once I finally realized it was just like a lightning bolt to my brain. I had, again, more changes that were not comfortable, and my life has been one profound transition to the next. So yeah.
As you left active duty, did you take advantage of any of the transition services, or was your ego getting in the way to prevent you from accepting that help?
I don't know if they were as robust as they are now. Maybe it was the scales I had on my eyes, or disillusionment, or just lack of direction. what I can see now, there are tremendous resources now. And the helmets, the hard hats, wasn't a direct VA kind of thing. It was it's its own kind of workforce rehabilitation. It's really not associated with the VA. They just help you use your GI Bill benefits to get, they get the double dip. I get paid GI Bill in a trade situation, but I don't even know how I found that. It was like random acts of signing up for whatever transition assistance, whatever it was. I know that I had been blown up in Iraq and I had some challenges, but because of how difficult the VA system was, it wasn't until probably 5 years ago, between 2006 and then 2019 before I actually even got any compensation for stuff, because I was just so disillusioned with the process. So even receiving benefits that I was experiencing a lot of pain through, it took a while. So I don't know that.
It sounds like timing wise, you were in the heart of that very public recognition by our nation that the VA was not living up to its promise in that window of time. And I mean, it's an overwhelming challenge in many ways. And I know a lot of money and effort has gone into improving those programs. I think you say it very gracefully that, some of these programs were not as mature as they are today. I know what you do right now, and I don't want to jump right to that, but were there some other positions along the way that led you out of the elevator trade?
Mostly random acts of entrepreneurial seizures, as I think Michael Gerber puts it. I have always been entrepreneurial, and it's actually a joke amongst my family. Like my little brother, he's like, I'd love to introduce you to my friend, but just don't try to sell them anything. Like it's always been a thing. I don't know. So I had several different attempts at online marketing kind of stuff and trying to sell stuff on the interwebs and having a blog, wrote a book, try to do like online personal training. And I've made a few bucks doing that, but it wasn't until I sat down to actually map out what are my unique gifts, like what am I actually good at and what do I want to do with the rest of my life, because it wasn't just running construction jobs and putting a white hard hat on and screaming at people, which wasn't especially fulfilling. There's probably better ways to run construction jobs, but I wanted to really think about what do I want to be known for and what am I uniquely good at.
Did you come to that concept of sort of a personal inventory on your own, or did somebody help you say, hey, Eric, you have to figure out blank?
Probably from reading a whole bunch of different books that all pretty much said the same thing, that finally it got through my thick skull that maybe I should take action on this whole start with why kind of concept, that you can only achieve something that you have a very clear picture on and put a deadline on it. And you have to decide which means to cut off. Like once I look at it, like I was not making decisions. I didn't have a clear end state for what I was trying to accomplish because I didn't take inventory of where I was actually at. So it was just, again, through pain of buying all these books and courses and having, working a 40+ hour work week and then coming home and doing all this online marketing stuff or trying to do online training or there's only so many hours in the week. And just through swinging this hammer of stubbornness and tenacity at the same problem, I'm like, well, maybe I should stop using a hammer to get the screw drilled into the wood. I need to really look at what tools am I using and stop lying to myself about what is actually happening here. I'm spending a lot of effort without accomplishing what I'm trying to accomplish because I didn't know what I was trying to accomplish. So again, just through wisdom or fatigue, I don't really know which came first, but it was through some collection of books and observing people who were smarter than me to realize that I needed to make a change.
Tell us what you wound up focusing in on. How did you identify what you were good at, what you were meant to do, and how you have moved into a paid form of that?
So before I joined the Army, I was actually very artistic. And it was like, what did you want to be when you were like 10 or 11 years old? Like, what did you spend the time doing before there was this whole work thing that you had to do? And I remember this incredible art teacher who I was just blown away by their illustration ability to just pick up a pencil and just bang it out. I actually won a bunch of scholastic awards to go to art school before. I was like, and I'm like, I'm gonna go be GI Joe. I'm not gonna do that artsy fartsy stuff. And it's like even a garbage collector makes more money than an artist, so like why would I do that? So but that's what I was like, so are there actually any successful illustrator artist type people? Is that even is it really possible, or is that just some line of crap that what is true, what is accurate? Give me an accurate picture. And the more I looked, I was like, wow, I just Googled who are the like highest paid cartoonists, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, there's Walt Disney, of course, but he actually, I find out that he wasn't even actually all that good of a cartoonist. And I look, and the creators of The Simpsons, and like the guy's worth over $300 million and like has a multi-billion-dollar franchise. And I'm like, they're not even good, like it's not even good art. And I'm looking at, I just continued to run into these, like they're not even that good, but they have such an impact, and they're telling these stories, and they're doing it simply. And I'm like there's something to this. I realized that what made me successful at the elevator construction was using a cardboard box and a Sharpie to not only understand what this complex machine was, but to communicate it to people, whether they're the owner or the engineer, architect, the other elevator guys, and as a general superintendent, using drawings. Like we have to have a clear picture of what we're trying to build, guys. Like, and so I was like, I don't want to be an architect. Again, this artsy fartsy thing. So how do I take all this experience and all this, but what I'm naturally inclined to do, and do something useful with it, and not just to make somebody laugh, but to build something useful. And so that's where I was like, oh, well, I'll just treat cartooning as an honest trade. Like, what if I did that? Like, what would that look like? And I drew it out, and it made my mission statement so simple and clear. It just burned itself into my brain. It was to reveal the truth through simple sketches. And so I just used that as a filter to get clear about what it is that who I am, what I'm trying to accomplish, cut through this Gordian knot of activity versus accomplishment. And again, it has been a profound shift in my life and level of success once I just stopped doing a whole bunch of stuff that I thought that I needed to do to be successful, and what I'm actually doing now. So yeah.
I know that that you do work of an entrepreneurial nature, but you also have a regular job, as they say. Can you connect those dots for us?
Because I knew how to do the online marketing thing, I was doing it and making good money as a visual strategy consultant, but I didn't want to be confused. It's not graphic design. And it's like this, it's another thing, but you have to see it to believe it. So I had success, but a limited amount of success where I thought I could take this thing. It's like, do I build an animation studio? Do I do the Disney route? Do I just become just a consultant, whatever? And I got into, because I speak the lingo, I got into what would be considered government contracting, supporting as a target market, people who have a budget to spend on illustration and simplifying complex solutions into instantly understandable illustrations and marketing and stuff. So that's how it started. And through that, I got connected. Okay, so who are the people who are winning these contracts, and what are they doing? What is it for? And I find, wow, there's this giant airplane company that does defense contracting and commercial airlines and all kinds of global services to the tune of like $100 billion a year. Oh, like there's this, it's a commodity that's actually, that we really take for granted. And so I became aware of Boeing through somebody who's doing this work at a very high level. He's a visual practitioner at the Boeing company. And the way that he communicated with me was challenged me in a way that I've never been challenged before in my life. And so I started a relationship with this guy, and he's been at the Boeing company for 30 years, drawing on the walls, getting prerequisite kind of engineering drawing to even figure out what the requirements even are, what is possible, a true innovator and a pioneer in both illustration and aerospace. And I was just blown away by this guy's work. And I'm like, how do I get paid to learn? But I might as well get paid by the learn and by the best and the biggest, and a company who can pay me a salary that is worth, leaving my entrepreneurial activities of, so they pay well, doing exactly what I want to do.
I'm picking up on that.
Yeah. And it just checked all the boxes. And they offered me the dream job. Unfortunately, I had to go fly across the country to live and work out of Seattle, but to earn their trust and to get to the level of skill that I can go anywhere in the country with it or the world. So yeah, I'm now working for the Boeing company out of their Everett location, which is the largest factory in the world by volume, drawing some of the most exciting and complicated engineering minds together to create tremendous amount of value throughout, like visualizing the value stream for customers. What does that mean? You'd kind of have to see it to believe it, but it's an amazing experience. I'm getting paid to learn and have a real impact, way bigger than I could just as an exterior consultant trying to help people fix their online marketing funnels or win a contract. So I'm having the time of my life, and I still take on some client work to scratch my entrepreneurial itch, and because I love doing this stuff. So I guess I'm a successful cartoonist.
How about one piece of advice for those transitioning or maybe struggling with transition? What's one thing that you would offer as counsel?
Getting clear about what you want to accomplish and putting a timeline on it. And it's very simple to say, but it requires some reflection on who you are, where you are, accurate understanding where you are right now, where you want to be, a very vivid picture of that end state and what needs to happen in sequence in order to get it, and pick up your pencil and write it out. Like, don't do it in your head, because it's going to require moving things around and requiring decisions, which means to cut off. Like, you cannot do everything. You can do anything that you could even possibly hold in your mind to believe you can achieve, but you cannot do everything. So sit down, map out where you are accurately, where you want to be, what does that look like, and what are the 3 to 5 to, if it takes 12 steps, whatever, map out exactly what needs to happen so that you can eliminate the distraction and get there as effectively as you possibly can.
Final question. Is balance something that you think about or pursue?
I think it's unrealistic for me right now. I'm severely unbalanced. I'm working towards integration because I want excellence in all areas of my life. And I don't know that balance is the right word to do it, but I want to be pound for pound the strongest version of myself. That requires me to work out and have the autonomy to hit the gym hard. But I also want to have a meaningful relationship with my wife. I want to have profound impact on the work that I'm producing. So maybe some people have balance figured out, but some of the most successful people I know, there's only so many hours in a day and you have to figure out how do you do that. So I'm still figuring that piece out.
That's a darn good answer, Eric. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks a lot, Gene.